Well, it's a very good morning, and I want to welcome you to this edition of the topical discussion. There's just a lot hovering around, especially in the world of news, and sometimes we tend to miss out on the big stories. The big story, apparently, is the looming tension within the Electoral Commission. As we speak, the Secretary of the Commission is out on indefinite leave, what has now turned out to be a sacking, as reports indicate that actually the axe is welding, or the hunt is on for a number of EC officials who've been involved in graft. But what's the depth of the story? The story first broke on the X platforms of a civic activist, Mr. Anthony Natif of the Public Square, that there would be a shake-up within the Electoral Commission and some people would face the knife. What remains untold about this as elections loom? With elections around the corner, there is tension within the Electoral Commission. What does it mean for the forthcoming exercise? Well, Anthony Natif, who turns out now to be not the whistleblower, how best would I describe you?
Well, let's say a vigilant citizen who obeys the orders of Article 17 of the Constitution.
Well, good to see you and a very good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Let's get to the heart of the story.
Yeah.
For the benefit of our viewers out there, it must have been, if you could remind me the date when you first published, when you outed that signal.
Yeah, so really we'd been, Public Square has been following reports of corruption in the Electoral Commission for the better part of 8 months. So we have had our finger on the pulse of this thing. We got whistleblower reports, we got some reports from, well, inside the IGG's office, we got correspondences here and there. We went and did our own investigation in the lands registry and talked to a few staff, followed the money. And so we kept putting this information out in the public and writing letters to the IGG, writing letters to the president, basically using our online platform on X. So when, I think it was 9 days ago when we had the news that there was something cooking, really much the same way that we reported that KCCA debacle. We got the news that there was something cooking and some people were going to be asked to step aside. And we had seen in the draft IGG report that a recommendation had been made that up to 7 senior members of the Electoral Commission were to be interdicted. But this report had come out nearly a year ago and nothing had happened. So we were a bit bothered by that. And
so it's not a new story?
No, it's really not a new story. It's not a new investigation. It's just a lot of this stuff of corruption and influence peddling and all this abuse of office that gets swept under the rug in the hope that this news never comes out. It's not also unique to the Electoral Commission. It's common in a lot of government parastatals. So if only citizens become a bit more vigilant, hopefully these things would come to light. But this in a lot of the anti-corruption investigations we've done as Public Square, we actually find that officers of the IGG, some police officers and stuff like that, they are usually aware of whatever is happening and for some strange reason turn the other side. Yeah, so this is not new.
Okay, how alarming is the scandal that you're talking about in this case? Because what I gather, it involves quite billions in procurement and in the management of affairs.
It's absurd. Quite frankly, the Electoral Commission, I would say without exaggerating, is a crime scene.
Sorry?
Yeah. I will say without equivocation, I think the Electoral Commission is a crime scene, which is sad because these guys are charged with the responsibility of overseeing our electoral process. When we went to dig, we just went off a tip. And, someone asked, why, say, I hesitate to mention names, but say the former EC secretary left. Like, no. They handed us documentation that showed so much fraud in the purchase of a certain warehouse in Chambogo, where guys advertised that they wanted 10,000 square meter warehouse and end up buying a 2,600 square meter warehouse. The guy who is selling the warehouse essentially says, well, I want, say, 4.8 billion shillings, and 16.9 gets paid out. And it doesn't get paid out through proper channels. It gets paid out through an agent, who it later turns out that agent is a girlfriend to one of the heads of the commission. Then when this, it's absurd. So when you follow that, every time you follow something, you find a guy who is willing to tell you another scandal, who is willing to show you another set of skeletons. So then it leads
one
to
thing leads
yes,
to another.
yes. You just have to follow the trail and pay attention. So one thing leads to another, and before you know it, you're now on, say, a one Leonard Mulekwa. You find that this guy is the kind of guy who heads an organization, and you're like, I'm rooting for this guy. This guy started from the ground up.
He's been in there for 25 years.
From 2000, just before 2000, I'll quickly look at my notes if you don't mind. So he came in around 2000 and went through the ranks. He was assistant returning officer, then became returning officer, then later principal of voter education. But around that time, he also went and ran for MP, tried to run for MP on the NRM ticket in Budaka.
And retained his job?
He resigned in Budaka, present-day Palisa, in Budaka constituency, I think. Then it was Palisa, now I think it's in Budaka district. I can't keep up, districts get formed every morning. So he lost his
Which year was
attempt to
that?
get 2011 or something of that sort. He lost his attempt to get the NRM ticket. So he comes back, works through the ranks, and he was a very hardworking guy. So people vouched for him to get reappointed. When he came, when he left, his job had been taken by Mole Kamukama, the Mole Kamukama that you know, also not a stranger to corruption allegations. He comes back. That was in voter education. He comes back. The likes of Sister Magova, etc., vouch for him. He gets the position of, I think it was...
he was a principal somewhere.
Yeah, head of field operations. That's where he came from to become now the head of the Electoral Commission, acting head, and then later he was confirmed. But then when you look around, his wife is also in the same commission as a returning officer in Buikwe. And then when he took to staff, there's a lot of allegations of, he has a girlfriend in that department. He's been to Dubai with that girlfriend, passports shared, and all that stuff. Then he comes in, you find the guy has, say by the time Rakojo left, there's over 79 billion shillings on the account in the regions. I mean, on the account. It gets sent to the regions to prevent it being returned to the consolidated fund. And then somehow that money finds its way back to the commission, to the headquarters, and is shared out. This is frankly in the IGG report. Now, that trick of them sending money to the regions is a very old trick on how to take money. I'll give you a very absurd example, which you're welcome to actually verify. And we went up to Ivanda, CPS, to check this out. Around COVID time, there was a guy in Chitagwenda. He was called Greenheart Mugera. He died of COVID. He was the returning officer that side. Okay? So he was a signatory to the EC accounts that had 600 million left over after the electoral activities. Okay? But he had signed one leaf and left it, in his desk. So that one leaf was availed to his co-signatory, who was now in Kamwenge. Now, this co-signatory was called George Magezi, I believe. So he signs the leaf to go and withdraw 600 million so he can bring it back to HQ for sharing. Goes to the bank calls the other signatory. Now the wife picks up and says, this guy died two months ago. The bank, to their credit, I won't mention them, the bank, to their credit, go and open a case at CPS, Ibanda. This guy gets arrested. Money is quickly sent, the money is freed, a new signatory appointed, co-signatory, money is withdrawn.
So everything is hatched from the headquarters.
Yes. And at that point, 13 districts, including my own where I come from in Bugisu, had money from around 412 million to 790 million. All this money made its way back to HQ. All this money got shared. Now, when the IGG's team went to investigate, and we got this information from the staff, went to investigate, found a lot of this rot, found rot around fuel misuse, found double payments, found double procurement. Say the EC would say, we're going to buy, say, 10,000 laptops. And in the same budget, they say they're going to buy ICT infrastructure. Almost the same. It's the same item, but budgeted for differently. How that money disappeared, we do not know. So anyway, then there's the issue of this same guy, the EC secretary, stopping. Basically, he packed EC cards. When there's no activity at the different region offices, the car doesn't move, except his wife's. And first she has a fuel card. Now, these other cars are parked there, getting spoiled, getting destroyed. The fuel is budgeted for and spent. Now, when you come and do investigations, there's 2 gas stations within like 2 minutes of the Electoral Commission. You can guess which these are. They receive the money
for fuel
in the billions, and there's no car that takes the fuel. The money just makes its way back to the pockets of the guys at the EC. So, the IGG,
so this is a syndicate, right?
Yes, and the IGG had these things in the report. So then what happened was, and this is really sad.
No, for the record, I need to know something. Is the IGG's report out, or these are just drafts from which you're picking?
It's the drafts and minutes of their meetings, which we have on very good authority. And it's one of the reasons that this indictment, I mean, these moves are happening. It's from that report. And we can verify, we can cross-reference our data outside the report. We can show you the dates this money was spent. We can imagine you have 80 million going to a gas station. How many cars are going to go there to take fuel?
Worth 80 million.
Yes, worth 80 million in a day. Then like a few days later, you have 100 million shillings going to the same gas station. And there's no electoral activity. Now there's another thing that will shock you. There's something called the biometric voter verification kit. So the EC budgeted for 1.7 something billion for this activity. Okay? But there was, like I told you on the laptop thing, there was still a similar budget in the mother budget. So there's a guy who headed ICT at the time. He was called Wamboko Herbert, Emulokole. Activity ends, voting ends, and then these people want to make a payment of 1.7 something billion, I'll get the actual figure, for quote unquote biometric voter verification kits. Now, these kits are used on polling day. You're making the payment towards the end of the financial year, 5 months after polling day. This guy writes an internal memo and says, you know what? This activity ended 5 months ago. It was budgeted for. Every provider was paid. Why are you making this payment? The response was simple. He's at director level. He's entitled to security. His security was withdrawn. His rights reduced. He's basically like some guy who doesn't belong in the commission for choosing to do the right thing. This memo is there. But still the money was spent.
In syndicated fraud?
In syndicated fraud.
Well, which particular case is Mulekwa facing in this case, in this particular case that has led to his suspension? Well, indefinite suspension.
I wish I could tell you with absolute certainty, but if you're running an organization and at each point that each place you point to, there's rot, it's extremely difficult to point to say which case this person is facing. But I'll read for you a few figures just to show you how deep this is. This is on that issue of money coming from the HQ, I mean from the regions unutilized, comes back and it disappears, doesn't go to the consolidated fund, it's shared. In fact, some of the staff were asked when the IGG did these investigations, some of the staff started saying, you know, you need to bring back maybe 10, 20 million off of the money you took so that we can have a kit for the IGG. Now, we don't have proof that the IGG asked for this money. For all we know, these people might have been preparing to do another heist on their fellow staff. But let me read for you these amounts, and you can verify. Kanungu on 19th of June 2021, 368,150,000 got back into HQ. Kamwenje, 22nd June 2021, 396 million to go with the other 600. Wakiso, 19th June 2021, 674. Mukono, 22nd June 2021, 364,
Million.
345, yes, million. Kampala, 22nd June 2021, 522 million. Kampala 2, another transaction on 25th June 2021, 550 million goes back. Buikwe, 22nd June 2021, 139. You can go on and on. Chankwanzi, same date, 212 million, 413. Jinja, 23rd June, 309 million, 311,000.
You would imagine this being a syndicated,
Yes.
a syndicated pattern of fraud.
Yes.
There are quite a number of big officials. Where does it leave the chairman and other commissioners?
I wouldn't know, but there's a time the chairman got into an accident. The chairman is not supposed to drive himself in an official car. He was off to Hoima, got into an accident in an official car. The car was written off, and that was never reported anywhere. He had no driver. So I cannot stand here and accuse the chairman of fraud, but a few of the things we've checked
They are
out.
pointers.
Yeah, because for me, when I saw that, an accident of a board chairman, the chairman of the Electoral Commission not getting reported, I'm like, this doesn't make sense. But when you dig deeper, the reason for not reporting it is apparent. The EC also, it's reported in that IGG report, had 2 payrolls. More than 708 staff, had 2 payrolls, had 148 promoted senior staff, and of these, just 28 were being paid through the proper payroll channels. The rest, they were being paid through circles and whatever, and the money gets withdrawn in cash, shared a bit. Hey, you got a promotion, give us some of this cash. The guy who wrote, he was an internal auditor, the guy who wrote this report fingering these guys for fraud, Ewan Barije Basheja, he was fired. And now the man is in Kanungu doing his private business. He was 44 and doing the right thing by the taxpayer. But you know, the moment you do the right thing in this area, they get rid of you.
Okay, this sounds like a classic robber of some sort.
Yeah,
Is it
it's
just
a public heist.
Is it just happening recently, or it's been more of a custom?
You can't say it's not been happening often. Let me tell you something. And when you look at how bloated the EC budget becomes, you will understand why. It's waste. And these guys put pork within the budget for them to cut out later on. In the last election, the Electoral Commission used 730 billion shillings to conduct the election. This time they're asking for 1.3 trillion. In that one,
Justifiably.
if you look at the justification, they're going to ask for ballot boxes, okay, worth billions of shillings. But these ballot boxes, as you remember, these are plastic boxes. They just spent 16.9 billion to buy a warehouse. Why don't they keep these boxes in those warehouses? Why do they have to buy new ones worth billions of shillings? What happened to the older ones? Ask yourself that question. And you'll understand that these guys know exactly what they're doing. They will ask for, like I told you, like 10,000 laptops. And then in the same budget, they put ICT infrastructure. And you ask them, what does ICT infrastructure mean? And you get no answer. But that money will be spent. They pump up the cost of fuel and stop cars moving at the regions while they spend the fuel money. Where does this money go? When you look at these guys, this guy had just come into office and he bought a house in Naguru and Chambogo. The current guy who is being set aside. Through a lot of, through a network. So you can't trace it. But if you're careful in following the money, you will get to it.
As the scandal now comes to prominence,
Yeah.
is it prompting any action? And what exactly compelled Mulekwa to take leave?
We suspect the president, oftentimes we say the man doesn't care about fighting corruption, but I think there are strategic areas where he steps up and gets rid of some of these things. Quite frankly, according to our reports, the directive came from him, and a few days later we saw press reports reporting that the man had taken indefinite leave after we made the announcement. So there's no reason to believe this is not coming up from the highest office in this land, because these reports, as you know, have been there.
There could be something maybe you've not interrogated.
Yeah.
How about witch hunt reports? That
There's no witch hunt. This thing is absolutely certain. This is corruption. Simon, we have invoices. We have money transfers. We have dead people signing for money. We have police reports at Ivanda Central Police Station. We have mobile money transactions of 3 million shillings sent to the guys in Ivanda to free this man. This is not a witch hunt.
So Mulekwa is central.
Yeah, he might not be the only one. And to be honest, accusing just one guy would be wrong, and we can't say it's just him, but he's the accounting officer.
That detectives are now casting the net wider in your intel?
Have you gathered? Yeah, it has to be, yes. They're investigating. And I would want them to investigate even issues of nepotism now. There's this issue that was never paid attention to. You remember the time the president appointed new electoral commissioners? He sent a letter with different names to Parliament. Then Parliament changed the president's list of commissioners. They put out this lady who died recently on 21st July 2024, the acting director of operations. She had been acting director of operations for 5 years. They never substantively appointed her because she was a straight shooter, and I think the president knew that. He appointed her a commissioner. Quickly, they got rid of her, replaced her with a one Peter Emurut, a brother to the Speaker of Parliament. You remember that guy had been fingered for acting inappropriately when he was a returning officer in Bukedia. He was training a candidate's agents on how to vote and how to do what, and basically rigging the system for them. He was pointed out for that and investigated. He came back as a commissioner. Catherine Bainamario, this is a sister-in-law to the Deputy Speaker of Parliament. She's now a commissioner. Replaced two people that the president appointed. We never saw any letter going to Parliament disappointing these two people. So essentially, Parliament sat in its own cocoon.
Because no one raised a red flag on them.
We did, but the president is the one who appoints these people. So he sent a letter appointing the Pamela Etunus of this world, Etonu Okudi. She even thanked him in the press. The New Vision ran this story, TV stations ran this story. Then they pulled the rug from under her feet and her other co-appointee. And these people were entered there. The Speaker's brother and the Deputy Speaker's sister-in-law. These are people who are supposed to be in charge of running a free and fair election. Their assent to the commission is shrouded in mystery. We want to see a letter as public swear, and the public that cares about the integrity of our elections. We want to see a letter rescinding the earlier presidential letter appointing the Pamelas and replacing them with these people. Because Parliament's job is not to appoint people. But they are there in the public space, and you can verify them.
There is also a school of thought that what you're saying now is prompted or propped by your recent meetings with the president in State House. So you're acting as an agent
of the president,
yes,
or of
the system.
No. Now that's a different question. You see, we've had this accusation before as Public Square. When we set out to start this entity, it's a think tank, it works as a civil society organization. It's a quasi-civil society organization that works in the areas of public accountability. That's why you've seen us expose so many corruption scandals. We work in the area of climate change and energy transition, and we work in the area of civic education. Now, we set out ourselves to be non-partisan. This is in our foundation documents. You can find them from December. It's just that most of our work was around exposing corruption, and this corruption is largely rooted in the people who have access to resources, which is the government people. So a lot of the time when you're doing this kind of work, people will think you've been conscripted to work with as an extension, an activist arm of the opposition. Until such a time when you actually show, oh, also you guys in opposition, you bought land in Kavule, and where you paid 1.4 billion for stamp duty purposes, you indicated 750 million. That is fraud. So when you indicate this, they will say, oh, you've been paid by President Museveni.
You ate.
Yeah, but we finance our work 100% from our own pockets. The staff of Public Square donate time to do this work. The Constitution in Article 17(1) clearly says it's the duty of every citizen to combat corruption. It's not just to call out corruption in government.
Anthony, in
so
the case
our meetings with the president,
yes,
our meetings with the president come in the line of our duty. The first one was when we went, Mr. Odrek Rawogo, the president's son-in-law. He seems like a very progressive guy, to be honest. We had done work in the coffee investigation. Well, we were asking ourselves, what instrument did the president use to give $10 million to a guy to go and build a private factory in Tungamo, where less than 2% of coffee in Uganda comes from? It didn't pass the smell test. So we dug up, we found documentation that linked Odrek to this thing. We unearthed, this was our major first piece of public.
Groundbreaking.
Yes. This work was shared by millions of people. It made its way to radio stations, you remember, TVs, newspapers, and all that stuff. So we got a bit of prominence from that. We didn't find any information linking money to Mr. Rawogo. So Mr. Rawogo reached out and said, I want to show you that while I arranged for this money to be presented so that I can build an export promotion fund for players in the coffee value chain, it was hijacked. The process was hijacked. And we had proof that actually guys falsified signatures and paid themselves this money. We presented this information. So we said, okay, we shall not refuse to talk to you. So we went, sat with him, he showed us documentation. We were convinced. Whether he was lying or not, we do not know. But as far as we saw and as far as we verified, we were convinced the man didn't take the money. Then he was working on something on mentorship, which is something we are passionate about, where he's celebrating across the political divide Ugandans who have had an impact on this society's history. And he said, well, I have this event.
So you're hooked to his camp?
No, I am hooked to a Ugandan camp. Our job is to make sure the public good reaches every Ugandan regardless of political leanings. That is our job. We do not care which church of politics you pray in, whether it's Museveni's, whether it's Mr. Chagulanyi's, whether it's Norbert Mao's, whoever. We do not care.
But well, if I could take you back to the EC scandal.
Yes.
Are you peddling allegations, or this is concrete information that's been concluded?
I welcome people to challenge this information. And when we said the man was leaving, it was days before you got news that he had tendered an application,
request for leave.
Request for indefinite leave. And, it sounded like he was handing over his entire office. And there's a play here. This is the same thing that happened to Mr. Rakojo. Did Mr. Rakojo ever see his firing letter? That man that he was fired with, Jotham Taremwa, even left with, I think it was 236 million shillings, if I remember correctly, at least according to what the information we've seen. he's now running for for office up there in the West. You know, these things happen, I think, in President Museveni's government, and they are sad to see.
You initially said that the Electoral Commission is a crime scene.
It is a crime scene.
Do you imagine there's been negligence on the part of investigators, or they've
Yes.
also been looped into the scandal, or into the fraud, the eating?
Yeah, you see, some of the whistleblowers we had were staff who are being asked to bring back 20 million shillings, so a pool of resources can be created to give to the IGG. Like I said, we cannot confirm this. We cannot sit here and accuse the IGG of masterminding that. But these were disgruntled staff who were unhappy that this was happening. They were being asked to bring back money, and they started whistleblowing with concrete documentation. We challenge anyone at the EC to actually poke holes in our information. It's been there. It has been viewed by nearly 1 million people.
What in your investigation, what do you think has been aiding the mischief?
These people oil the system. There is no one providing oversight, as long as a lot of these guys are regime apologists. They are government people. They are government affiliated. They are very well connected. So they know I think they know whose palms to oil, so that they don't get a backlash. But also probably the president hands people enough rope before he acts. I also do not think, and I also do not think the IGG is actually doing a good enough job. For me, I can stand here and look in your camera and say, Madam IGG, I think you need to do better. Yes, we do appreciate the fact that we have written to her, we've written to you, Madam IGG, as Public Square, and you've responded to a lot of our communications, but we think you need to step up. You're aiding and abetting corruption in this country, and something needs to be done about that.
Okay, who else is having a noose hanging around him?
We hope that the guys at Uganda Bureau of Statistics...
No. Within the Electoral Commission, for starters.
There's at least 7 people who are facing interdiction, at least going by the IGG's own report, signed by her deputy. We hope that this will extend to a lot more than those 7 people. The chairman, I do not know where his power lies. I mean, extends to, but it's a bit unforgivable for a judge. He's actually still an active judge, I believe. He's not a retired judge, to be overseeing an organization with such rot, with such nepotism, with such influence peddling.
Perhaps it's been so sophisticated that he could not detect
There's
or
nothing
nip it in the bud.
Simon, there's nothing sophisticated about the kind of theft we witness in Uganda. Kuno kubba na jogo. Someone just steals and dares you, what will you do? It is not clever. It is just them telling the taxpayer.
Is it that glaring?
Yeah,
you want to say
them,
this?
If an amateur pharmacist can actually sit on a desk and follow this trail and find, of course I get a few finance guys to sift through the numbers, but if an amateur pharmacist retired pharmacist can sit down and do this investigation with a team of riffraffs who are friends from different corners of this country, they are not qualified accountants, we are all there like bohemians, we sit down and do these investigations. What of people who are facilitated? What of people who have the qualifications to do forensic investigation?
Well, in the midst of these damning allegations on fraud happening within the Electoral Commission, what is the fate of the electoral processes? We'll return after the break. Good morning. Welcome back as we continue interrogating the untold story behind allegations of grand fraud that is taking place within the Electoral Commission that has actually seen Paul Mulekwa, rather Leonard Mulekwa, the Secretary of the Electoral Commission, take leave under very mysterious circumstances. Moreover, it is indefinite. Well, you've cited quite a number of allegations. You've talked about poor accountability, you've talked about nepotism. Are these systemic or they've just started with Leonard?
No, we don't want to accuse the man of things he hasn't done. This didn't start with him. When you look at the leadership of the Electoral Commission, there's an overrepresentation of one religious sect. And I won't mention it, but when you look at it, you can see why. Historically, it has been that way. When you look at, say, the people who were fired together with Mr. Samra Kojo, there was Jotham Taremwa, then there was Fred Wanyoto. Fred Wanyoto is reported to be a brother and a business associate to Nandala Mafabi. He was put there at the time that Honorable Nandala Mafabi was heading PAC. So basically, when you look at Honorable Nandala Mafabi's work at PAC, Electoral Commission didn't take any heat. So a lot of the time, corruption will work that way. I will take care of you. I may not give you money. I will put someone in a position, and then the system is smoothened. Now, when you get to...
so it has thrived because they are oiling certain interests?
Yes, they take care of certain interests. They know, oh, you're in parliament, so we'll make sure that your brother is sitting on the commission. The deputy speaker will make sure your sister-in-law is a member of the commission. Then you will have situations where the director of finance brings her nephew to head procurement. And the nephew will head procurement without meeting the requisite qualifications. Because, you know, the guy who has been in that position wasn't playing ball. They put him on a short leash, kick him out, ask this guy to step up. I won't name names, but you can investigate, and I'm sure these guys have investigated. Ask this guy to step up. Their standing orders, I mean, their internal memos, I mean, guidelines basically say for you to step up into that position, you must have served at a junior position for at least 3 years. This guy is stepping up after serving for 1 month and is getting the qualifications, academic qualifications, as he goes along. Okay? So this kind of nepotism is unacceptable and needs to be called out.
So there are accomplices within and outside the commission?
Yes, and it's extremely difficult to beat collusion. It almost seems like a perfect system. But when you scratch below the surface, or when you find a few disgruntled stuff, or when you find, you know, 1 or 2 documents, you're going to arrive at this road quite easily. And it's hard to explain how the powers that be that are in charge of investigating corruption and charging these people never saw it. But it's there, and it's not unique to the Electoral Commission. It's there in almost every government parastatal that we have looked at, and we've looked at quite a few.
When was the IGG's report published? And how come it's not
public knowledge, but this report was out, I think, 10 months ago, nearly a year ago. Because a lot of these things that the IGG was investigating at 2001, 2002.
No, 2021.
I mean, yeah, 2021, 2022. The Auditor General should also be able to find this out. But let me ask you, and I digress a bit. You followed the parliamentary exhibition and you saw how much corruption was exposed in the Parliament of Uganda. But the Auditor General pretty much kept giving those people a clean bill of health. So there's...
Can we loop him in this case as probably an accomplice?
Ultimately, the Auditor General is supposed to audit all these things. When you go and look at his report, it ignores some of these things. And even the guys inside the Electoral Commission will tell you, when we are budgeting, we have to make sure at the end of the year, when external auditors are coming, we have something for them. It's how corruption is covered in this government.
Okay. When you dig deeper, how far would you go beyond what the IGG disclosed?
Personally, I would fire the entire commission if it was up to me, because there's a dereliction of duty there. But everywhere you look, even buying curtains, we were very shocked, buying curtains. There was corruption there. It's an insider's company that is supplying. So they say pre-qualification, they do all this stuff, it is fake bidding. A guy will come and say, and we've seen this in construction, in major construction projects where you have some, oftentimes we've seen in the works we've been looking at, some major Chinese multinationals just colluding and just bidding below each other. And they know who is going to win. It's a syndicated bidding process. Same thing here. They will sit with the procurement guys. They will choose a winner. And then they will do the whole sham of advertising nationally, invite bids and all that stuff. But they'll have a preset winner. And when you look for who the winner is...
that quite a number of people who are in the commission have godfathers who appoint them to those positions. And that's why they act with a lot of impunity. Have you interrogated this as well?
Yeah, but the godfather thing, the godfather syndrome is not just, again, unique to the Electoral Commission. We also saw it in Parliament. Judges, there's a judge of the Court of Appeal whose child got onto the Parliament payroll without qualifications. They failed the interview. But you know they had to be there. You have ministers, you have all manner of connected government officials. After these guys have messed up the economy, and their kids can't find jobs, they'll find them jobs in government. And then the rest of the proletariat will hustle on the streets and die of poverty and unfulfilled dreams. It's extremely absurd. This is how
Did you ever
the
look
system works.
into the competences or the qualifications of most of the key staff within the Electoral Commission?
Yeah, some of them. We've told you about the procurement unit. We can take this to the bank, absolutely. The person who stepped up didn't meet the criteria, who stepped up after Robert Barekwa didn't meet the criteria. He's welcome to challenge this. Some of the wives of commissioners, returning officers, a lot of the people in there are going to be appointed because they are NRM leaning. So the most important thing is the election is coming. So you need to make sure the fix is in. Somehow the opposition has also tried to infiltrate, and when that is found out, mass firings happen. It's it's a proper crime scene, Simon.
Okay. How did Mulekwa ascend to that seat?
Like I told you.
Is it because of loyalty to party, allegiance to the powers that be?
Mr. Mulekwa went to the Electoral Commission in the early 2000s. I believe it is 2000. He was
in Kasuja's batch. Yes, I remember.
He went through the ranks. He was an assistant returning officer, grew to returning officer, then later field operations. Mr. Mulekwa also contested in Budaka to get the NRM ticket. He failed. So he's a cadre. You cannot get that job.
And it's also typical of several others.
Yes, you cannot get that job if the system is not aware of your political leanings. Now, I'll take you back to 1980. President Museveni then was part of the military commission that organized the election in which he ran. They all cleared who would be in charge of that election. Every candidate had a representative when it came to a decision on who was going to head this, who was going to be their deputy, how the system was going to be conducted. And if you read Ugandan history, we have been told that is one of the most sham elections ever held. But then, after the election, the people who ran in that election all somehow ended up in cabinet. Okay? History is there. You can go back and read. But now we have a situation where we do not know one candidate is going to appoint the entire Electoral Commission. So I'm hoping that after some time, Ugandans will have a moment of reckoning and say, look, perhaps just like Kenya did in 2010, let's have a new deal. Let's have a negotiation that allows for a new constitution, so we know how commissioners have voted, who is conducting the elections. We can ensure the independence of these people to the best of our ability, and then perhaps we'll have more faith in the electoral process.
If I could ask again, you tend to suggest that the biggest manifesto of corruption lies within procurement processes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's where most of the money goes anyway. People supply air, people will do anything, will inflate costs. They will be the suppliers, they'll have their own companies there. They will buy fictitious fuel, as I've showed you, and this is clearly in the IGG's report. They will, we have invoices here, we have memos where they paid 1.74 billion shillings for that biometric voter verification exercise. That had ended months earlier. And even the head of the actual department said, you know, money is not needed in a memo, but the money was paid. So a lot of these things are procurement, proper procurement, but, you know, money disappears.
Okay, if Mulekwa, for instance, and his team left, the ghost would still remain within the commission. There is an endemic system.
Yes, sadly, we fish from the same pond. And oftentimes, people will cry corruption, corruption, and then get in there and do the same thing. They'll be crying corruption, corruption, because they want whoever is in charge
It can't be uprooted.
With time, it will have to be uprooted. If we
No, you can't. For instance, if the pattern is that you have to appoint either loyal cadres or relatives within, that's where it starts from.
Exactly now, but you've just pointed out the root cause. That's why I said we need to have our 2010 Kenya moment here and have a new constitution that actually puts back power in the hands of the people. Will that happen today and tomorrow? No, because self-interest is what drives politics. For as long as the people who run the country are still interested in running this country and the patriarch is still in charge, I do not think this is going to happen. But I am as non-partisan as they come. I will tell the president this, and I'll tell the opposition the same thing.
If it is the president who is now striking the sword, is he bidding to clear the system ahead of 2026, or it can only make matters worse, given that the timing is very sensitive? The roadmap is already out.
Simon, the president, if you look, and we spoke about this earlier, has fired people towards that election. Almost every election.
Yes.
He fires them. So there has to be some sort of
If I could take you back, around 2021, towards the 2001 elections, we had Hajati Nasanga and group, the commissioner who was arrested and thrown out, together with several other technical persons. Then 2006, something again happened.
Yeah, the first one was 2001.
Yes, the first one was 2001. I mean, it's intriguing. Why?
Even before the other one, the Rakojos were kicked out. I think he also doesn't trust some of these people. He needs to shake up the machine. He's a master tactician. You have to give him that, even if you don't agree with him. So whatever cards he's playing, only he knows. But for us, as anti-corruption campaigners, we have to give him credit for firing these people, because we do not want to see rot. And we call upon him because ultimately the buck for fighting corruption and the buck for anything in this country stops with the president.
So there have been quite a number of
yes.
There have been a number of ignored complaints about gross corruption
in all spheres of President Museveni's government. So ultimately the buck stops with the president, and he is the one who appoints the IGG. He's the one who appoints all these people who are in charge of fighting corruption. If they are not delivering, he needs to pull them and replace with others, hold them accountable. He has done it at KCCA, he's doing it at the Electoral Commission, and we need to applaud him that, give him his flowers, and challenge him to actually do a lot more, because the buck stops with him.
Somewhere on X you said statistics is next. What have you unearthed?
I am hoping that, yes, when we saw the numbers, I'm a Mugisu, so I have self-interest here. When we saw the numbers of the census, they just didn't pass the smell test. So we got our analyst, a guy who has overseen millions of dollars of transactions He is a financial analyst, and we just Public Square threw these numbers to him, and he went to work. Actually, even NSSF, we are coming for you. These interests you're declaring are a bit dubious. But I digress. When we saw the numbers, I'll tell you, we went back and we're like, these numbers don't pass the smell test. So we did a quick analysis, came back and challenged the statistics body, and quickly they said, well, we flipped. We mixed up these numbers. The other tribe, we gave it this one. The other tribe, we gave it this one, which is nice. But then the guy comes and says, calls himself the best, one of the best statisticians in the country, and says, yeah, I'm not yet ready to leave office. I'm also training this one. Get a guy overseeing a flawed system is training another bunch of people who are going to come and oversee a flawed system. So that is flawed ab initio. He needs to step aside. People also need to normalize taking responsibility.
Yeah, but you're not making a clear diagnosis of where the problem came from.
The problem is from incompetence. This man, when you just simply Google Uganda Bureau of Statistics firing scandals, this man is always in the middle of them, and also the IGG needs to do better. When she gets whistleblower reports, her office snitches on these people and they are fired. The Uganda Bureau of Statistics has had at least 4 whistleblower reports. In our possession, we have 2 that have gone to the IGG's office, and they've come back accusing that man and his team of gross corruption long before the census happened.
From the IGG?
Yes. No, from inside to the IGG. And guess what happens? These people get fired. There's one who recently got fired, and he ran to the High Court to get a stay, and the court basically told him, you're out of time. The board had sat, kangaroo court, and got rid of him. His crime, pointing out corruption in UBOS. So he wrote a secret letter to the IGG, but that letter ended up back to his bosses at UBOS. So the IGG needs to also explain why she does not protect whistleblowers.
You are literally suggesting that perhaps we need to investigate the investigator.
Yes, we need to also investigate the IGG. I am saying that shamelessly. We need to investigate the IGG. This is in the public domain. Whistleblowers go and whistleblow, and then their letters end up in possession of their bosses, and they're left exposed. This is not the first time.
Anthony, you seem to be sniffing everywhere.
That is our job as citizens.
There is this thinking that you're motivated by someone big from the State House. So be it.
Why would Dracula try to close the blood bank? A lot of these people are corrupt people. Why would they want to stop corruption? But also, I challenge anyone who has proof that we've ever gotten financed by anyone in State House over at Public Square
to bring it. Receipt of transport refunds.
50,000 shillings that I still have on my desk. And we were clear as to the purpose of that meeting, and I cannot blame Kanona Kalima for putting it together. We cannot refuse to talk to
You got 50K?
Yes.
That's all you've gotten so far.
I still have that money, yes. Transport refund. And I will tell you, Simon.
Are you honest?
Yeah, challenge me.
Okay, fine.
I have challenged anyone to say, here is money that came to you from the state to talk ill of the opposition. And I want the state to also say, here is the money that came from the opposition to speak ill of the state. Because we are equal opportunity offenders. And we are happy with that. The Constitution in Article 17(1) tells you it is the duty of every citizen to fight corruption, to combat corruption. It used combat. It is combative language. It doesn't tell you the tools to use. So it is open season. You can use an axe. You can do citizen arrest. You can investigate and expose. You can take to court. It is your duty as every citizen of this country to do that in whatever way you can.
Someone watching you is saying, this guy recently divorced with Agora.
Yeah. I wouldn't call it a divorce. It was a disagreement on principle. And those are my comrades. Those are our comrades. I mean, we started this work together. We've partnered in the parliamentary exhibition. We've shared intel. We've shared meals. We've had conversations every Friday.
And they're looking at you as a betrayer.
Each
you
other.
betrayed them.
Betrayed who?
They have dated each other?
No, I'm just saying, like, it's normal practice. Like, you have friends, you hang out, you've dated, you've drunk together, you've partied together. It is not new. These are friends. So I cannot sit here and condemn Agora and say they are bogus, they are what. These are people who also care about the country. They love the country. They are doing the best they can under the circumstances they are dealt. We might disagree on the methodology. They may say, well, for us, we won't talk to Museveni because he's the grandfather of corruption. They may be right in their accusation because ultimately the buck stops with the president. We shall say, for us, we'll talk to anyone. And it is an ideological difference that has to be respected. The problem is we live in a world of outrage machinery that just wants entertainment. Controversy sells. We are not interested in that. We are interested in the work.
Well, essentially, what do you gain from exposing the Electoral Commission?
I mean, I'm doing my citizenship duty. We are doing our citizenship duty at Public Square. We need to see...
Do you think anything can change?
I mean, people are getting fired. People are getting alert. They are
That's
paying
attention
attention.
to you.
Yes, and we need to normalize the resigning bit, that if you screw up, you resign. We need to normalize some of these things. Two, we need to get citizens to be more vigilant. We have showed you that sometimes the IGG's office, I'm not accusing her personally, but the IGG's office will expose whistleblowers. But still, it's our duty to go after these corrupt people and expose them, take them to court, make them uncomfortable. Let's normalize the process of accountability.
You're casting a bad spotlight on the electoral body at
Yes,
a time where their integrity issues, even trust, is at its lowest
Yes.
about elections.
Yes.
Do you think this is an electoral commission that will deliver a credible election in 2026 amidst all the scandals?
I mean, for us, it's our hope. At the end of the day, there's this saying that I used earlier, that sometimes you have Dracula running a blood bank, and if you don't find any blood there, the blame should be on you for expecting different. But we are hoping that the more work we do to expose the electoral body, the more we shall see improvements in the way elections are conducted. We live in a country where, you remember that petition, one Besigye petition, where the Supreme Court of this land actually said the Electoral Commission conducted a sham election. That Kanyaihamba thing, that court that had Odea, Sekoko, Mulenga, those guys, and Odoki. They condemned the Electoral Commission on everything, but then later upheld the election. So basically, a sham system, a sham process produced a proper result. Now, the election period doesn't start on election. Yes.
What exists now is another sham system.
Yes. Now, we need to correct the sham system because we do not believe that a sham system is going to produce a proper result. Garbage in, garbage out. So, as citizens, we need to make sure that the people who are in charge of conducting our elections are not thieves. That's when we shall have an election that we believe in. Once you have an election that the citizenry doesn't believe in, that is how you have anarchy. That is how you have public anger falling on the streets. That's how you have destruction of property. A democracy is built on the integrity of its electoral process.
Well, I must really thank you, Anthony Natif. There is just more, a lot more. Do you have an estimate of how much perhaps is on Mulekwa's head in terms of loss?
I can tell you that when Rakojo left, there was 79 billion shillings on their account, unutilized. Where did this money go?
It was utilized.
By who?
The commission.
No. It was never returned to the consolidated fund. Suddenly you have a budget jumping from 730 billion, which budget to 1.3 trillion. Of course, I don't think they're going to give them all that money. But there's a lot of pork in there for people to steal. When you do forensic audits, and we are calling for forensic audit on the Electoral Commission to reveal how much loss the taxpayer has taken. And after that, we should go after the people who are responsible. We should normalize getting back their property. It is not enough to jail these people for 4 years, 5 years. We should normalize getting back their property.
Anthony, I want to thank you very much. That's all time we had for this morning with Anthony Natif, a civic activist and anti-corruption crusader. Have a lovely day and cheers.